What up, YouTube? I'm back again. I told you there was lots of stuff that I was up to. In this video, I've been dreading because I gotta remember so much shit. So, as you can tell, I usually wear this sweatshirt during my comics video. So that is indeed what this is. And if you recall in my last video, I went to our local comic shop, Heroes, and in the beginning of August to pick up my, my subscription that I always, the issues that I always want to get monthly that they, save for me. And there was only one new issue. It was, I think, just one G.I. Joe issue. And so I was like, oh, okay, there's delays and whatever. So I was like, oh, okay. So then I used that as kind of an opportunity to look at some of the back issues I needed for the various series. And I think there was one Star Wars one I got, but then a whole bunch of Ninja Turtle stuff that I got. So last month's comics review was a little more old school and a little less issues than normal, right? So when I went to Heroes at the beginning of September, all the stuff that had failed to come in August came in spades, and I was like, holy shit, I got a lot of stuff this month. And then there was a couple of other little surprises on top of that. So we'll start with the haul that I got from Heroes and then take it from there. So the first batch I got were issues 105 through 108 of the ongoing Ninja Turtles series. So here's number 105. Here's number 106. Here is number 107. And here is number 108. And I think I'm going to start taking pictures of them to post at the end of the video just so you can have a look at the covers a little more closely. But as this foursome of issues starts off, the Turtles had just gotten over kind of that distance that was between them after Splinter died. And everybody was had come together, and they were like, well, at the end of that issue, they're like, well, why don't we go to a rock and roll show? So in this issue, that's what they do. They go to this concert. Most of them love it. The only two that don't really appreciate the music is Raphael and Alopex, who is one of the main mutants that's involved in this kind of reclaiming of Mutant City and helping out with the dojo and the shelter and stuff like that. And I think she looks like maybe a white fox or something like that. I'm not sure. Or maybe is Alopex, is that a type of animal? I don't know. But that's kind of what she reminds me of, is like a fox or something like that. So they go to this concert. Alopex and Raph don't really like it. And at the end of the concert, the Turtles meet the band and they gain some new friends there. They run into a couple of mutants that they kind of ran across in a more violent nature, and kind of befriend them by saying, let's not do this. Can we buy you a drink and let's put all this shit behind us? And that's cool. So everything's chill. There's a couple of mutants that they've run into as well that are watching from the rooftops that aren't so quick to forgive. Although they don't make a move, they are monitoring kind of the Turtles' activities. So then after the concert, it goes back to regular life. They're continuing to fix up the shelter. They're running classes for the child mutants in becoming ninja warriors. They're running like dojo missions or dojo training sessions for them and stuff like that. And so life kind of settles into this kind of routine of helping their fellow mutants and continuing the offerings of the shelter. Suddenly, though, there comes on the scene what the children are referring to as the Slithery, some sort of monster that strikes from the shadows and takes the kids away. And soon enough, Lita, who is a small albino mutant turtle sort of thing, who is one of the Turtles' favorite little kids, she has a run-in with a couple of the other kids who make fun of her for being small and not being very good at being a ninja. And so she runs away into the city streets, and eventually the Turtles notice, and they're like, Lita. So they go out looking for her, and while out doing this, they run into a troop of mousers who eventually lead them to the Slithery, who turns out to be this big kind of mutant eel creature that's taking all of these kids. And as soon as the mousers are discovered, the Turtles contact April and are like, what the hell is Baxter Stockman up to? There's Mousers down here terrorizing everything and stuff like that. So then April goes to confront Baxter and discovers him kind of monitoring the situation from the sewers with the Slithery on his screens. And she's like, well, like, what the hell, man? What are you doing? He's like, well, we're keeping this threat contained. And April's like, well, what about all the mutants that are suffering at the hands of this monster? And so she's kind of pissed at him. And so she goes off with some of the other mutants from the shelter that didn't go on the original mission to check out the Slithery, to go and help the Turtles and stuff. And so then that's kind of where things end at the end of 108, is that they do manage to defeat this monster, and Lita has to lead the charge and show off her ninja skills and kind of gain some confidence in helping them kind of escape and stuff like that. And in the end, we realize that Baxter Stockman is up to something no good, because his Mousers come back with some sort of mysterious egg at the end of it. So it leaves us pondering, where is this going? Onwards and upwards. The next 2 issues here are from a little crossover, a short crossover series that I was didn't know was coming out until I found it in my my bag when I went a couple months ago and got my subscription pack. So I've already read the first issue and reviewed that. So what we have next is issues 2 and 3 of Transformers and the Terminator. So here's issue number 2. And here is issue number 3. So, when issue 2 picks up, the Terminator has begun his attack on the Decepticons inside the Autobot Ark and is intent on destroying them, because the Transformers basically are the downfall of the human civilization. And in the process of the fighting, Sarah Connor is in there and she's scrambling and whoa, and Soundwave releases Ravage to chase after her. And in the process of that little skirmish, she accidentally gets the Ark's onboard computer, which is usually Teletran 1, but in the comic they call it something else, I think. Either way, she gets it to accidentally activate, and it scans Optimus Prime and reanimates him, so he's up. So now we've got an Autobot, the most powerful Autobot, into the mix, fighting against the Decepticons, although the Terminator is indiscriminate in which robots he's killing. They're all the same to him. So, but Sarah, though, sees the difference and sees that, okay, these guys might be the good guys, the way they're talking, the way they're acting, and whatever. So then she scans another. She notices the difference between Autobots and Decepticons, chooses to scan Bumblebee as well, so he gets up and into the fight. And in the end, the Autobots, drive the Decepticons away, and Sarah gets everybody to calm down between the Autobots and the Terminator unit, and the Autobots listen to the Terminator and his reasons for wanting to destroy all Cybertronians, based on the fact that in 1984 these Transformers attacked Earth and basically destroyed civilization, and humanity's one last defense was this system, Skywatch, which ultimately failed, and the only remaining part of it, Skynet, continued on and created these eventually Terminator units in this time machine and stuff like that. So he's basically there back in time to destroy the Transformers before they can attack and kill the Earth and basically save humanity. So Sarah, though, doesn't like his attitude in terms of blanket destruction to all these Cybertronians, because she knows that Optimus Prime and the Autobots are different. So she talks them down and gets them kind of working together, at least in a temporary truce. So the Autobots go to work and reanimating more of their guys. They get Ratchet back, they get Wheeljack, RC, and then another Transformer that I forget the name of her, because she's not one of the regulars. I don't know who she is. She might be new just for this kind of series. So they get them back up and running. Meanwhile, the Decepticons screw off and they go on the hunt for Energon. And the facility they end up at is Cyberdyne Systems, who, as we all know, are the creators of Skynet. So, and then as we lead into issue number 3, the Autobots kind of go out in search of the Decepticons because they know they're up to no good. So there's a couple of different missions going on to spearhead that search. And in the end, they do come together and a fight ensues. the Autobot Arc. I think Ratchet and Wheeljack are still left behind at the Arc, and they're trying to get some other Transformers reanimated, but they're in need of more Energon. But soon it doesn't matter because somebody has left behind a little explosive and it blows the Arc sky high. So we don't know what happens to those guys there. Although from the plume of destruction in the comic, it looks like everybody must be destroyed. And the issue ends on a bit of a cliffhanger when Starscream confronts the Terminator unit all on their own behind the scenes, and he says, let's make a deal. You know, we all know Starscream's a schemer, so we all knew something like this was coming, and it leaves everything off on a bit of a cliffhanger. And I believe it's only a 4-issue series, so we will find out the conclusion to this whole storyline and just exactly what Starscream's up to, hopefully this month. I mean October. This month. This month is September. Next month, October. I have no idea what day it is anymore. Next up is another pair of Transformers comics, issues 21 and 22 of the ongoing regular Transformers series, which now has been subtitled for the time being Rise of the Decepticons. So here is a look at issue number 21. And here is a look at issue number 22. So as these 2 issues unfold, it starts off a small team of peace-loving Transformers led by like Beachcomber are out on Cybertron looking for one of the Titans, Leviathan, who has crash landed and he's kind of stuck and he's being lazy. He doesn't want to get up. He says, get search and rescue and help me out of here. And so they're trying to talk him like, no, just transform and get out of there. Come on, man. And in the meantime, while they're doing this, they don't know approaching is a little group of Decepticons, or not Decepticons yet. Right now they're only known as Acenticons because they're kind of rebelling against the norms on Cybertron. And they are trying to stay out of sight because they are wanted for murders, specifically a Transformer named Quake and also Frenzy. And so they unwittingly come across this little group of peace lovers that are trying to get Leviathan out of his hole. And so a little skirmish ensues. But soon enough, they let the security forces know. So soon a little team of Transformers led by Smokescreen, Novastar, Springer race to the scene and start engaging these Acenticons and get the drop on them. And the fight goes on for a while. In the meantime, Bumblebee is talking to Windblade. He's not in captivity, but he's kind of under watch right now because he was with the Acenticons for a while, but then his usefulness to them kind of wore out, and at the same time he was like, I don't know if I agree with these guys, so he was kind of on the outs with them. So he's kind of like under suspicion, but also not, but they're just keeping their eye on him. So he's kind of back in the main city being watched over and stuff. So he's talking to Windblade about, you know, his actions and how he feels and stuff like that. So while all of this is unfolding. So eventually the fights come to a close, and this team of what I guess are Autobots subdues this this group of Acenticons, and the fight gets even more fierce because Six Shot enters the fray, and he's a more formidable foe. But they eventually get Quake captured and under captivity. And in the meantime, Sentinel Prime is going to call an emergency session of the Senate with no representatives of the Acenticons because they got to figure out what the hell are we going to do about these guys. Because Megatron not long ago broadcast to the whole planet some propaganda from the Acenticons, basically blaming Orion Pax, Sentinel Prime, and all the other people from you know, pushing everybody down and not letting everybody, you know, rise to their true potential. So they're facing all these things on the Acenticon front that they have to get under wraps. As this team of Autobots are bringing Quake back into the city after capturing him, a group of Transformers of the public have gathered and are watching this procession, and eventually things get out of hand and they all want to see Quake's head on a platter. So like Smokescreen and the rest of the guys are like, no, no, and they're trying to defend him and stuff like that. And in the fracas, Quake actually gets loose and starts to run, and he's pursued by a couple of parties. One, an organic race named the Voin, who are in town and are wanting Quake for some reasons. I forget why, but they chase after him. And also Bumblebee goes after Quake, and he's actually the one who catches him right at the end of issue 22 and puts a sword right through his neck and kills him. So Smokescreen's like, uh-oh. So he's like, Bumblebee, stand down. You're done. You're done. So Bumblebee is now under arrest. So it's kind of like the Punisher when I was talking about my Bill 69 video that I posted earlier today. Is it necessarily bad that you take a bad guy who's committed murder and give him the same treatment? I don't think so. If you're 100% guilty of murder, off with your own head, right? That like you've brought that upon yourself. So Bumblebee offing him to me is, oh, I didn't see anything. Like if I was Smokescreen, oh, I didn't see it. No, I don't know. He must have tripped and fallen on something, like whatever. But so that's how the issue ends, is with Bumblebee offing Quake and then setting up what should be an interesting next issue to see where things go from there. So we will find out soon enough. Yet another pair of Transformers issues is next on the docket. This one, kind of a branch off from the main Transformers ongoing line right now, dubbed Transformers Galaxies. So we have issue number 7 here. And then issue number 8. So what led into these two issues was, if you remember from my last time, RC and Greenlight, along with a young Transformer named Gage, escaped Cybertron at the last moment because things were all going to hell, and there was no more ships leaving, so everybody who was trapped on Cybertron was trapped. So at the last minute, they managed to sneak onto this one last ship that was departing for who knows where. So they were able to get on it at the last minute. So that was the last thing we saw in issue number 6. So as issue number 7 opens up, we see Gage, but this young Transformer is not the Gage we knew from before. He's been fed like all this propaganda, almost like he's had his mind erased, and he's now toiling on this ship, almost like in a cult. They worship this large Transformer named Heretic, and they have this kind of religious almost mantra that they all follow, and they all pitch in and do their part, and they all have their meditations and their chores that they have to do every day, and everything will work out in the end, and this is the way it is. You may know my thoughts on religion by now because I do talk about it every once in a while, but it's all horse shit. And this kind of has that ring of horse shit in it, right? So Gage is all brainwashed by these friggin' mental people. And, but while he's performing his tasks and all of his daily rituals and such, his mind always wanders. And his mentor, I forget her name, notices it and is like, dude, you got to stay in the now and do your chores and whatever. And Gage keeps seeing this weird code pop up everywhere he looks, and it's bugging him. It's bugging his deep subconscious. And so eventually one night he goes snooping around and he's like, I got to figure out what this is. So in the process of his travels and his searches, he actually comes outside the Heretic's throne room or something like that. And the Heretic actually comes out and bumps into Gage and is like, you peon, never come around here, and basically throws Gage down to the ground, which only heightens his sense that something's friggin' wrong here, right? So eventually his travels lead him to the engine room, where he comes upon a sealed cell where RC and Greenlight are being held, and they're like, Gage, you got our code, you found us. And Gage is like, what are you talking about? Who are you? And they're like, you've had your mind wiped, brah. So welcome to the truth. So they give him this device that will, wipe that wipe away, and he'll regain all of his memories and stuff like that. So he says, what have I got to lose? So he does it. And he's like, oh, I see what you've done here. I see what you've done there. And he's like, oh yeah, oh my god, I'm on a ship full of a bunch of freaking crazies, and the only two people that I know here and that I know are good are in this cage. So he's kind of gotta play it cool and just seem like he's going about his everyday life and that he's into everything. Well, he tries to work out a way to free RC and Greenlight from their captivity because he can't override the controls or whatever. So he has to go through the motions all the while thinking, how the hell am I going to get the three of us out of this? And so as the end of that second issue, number 8, comes to a close, he does manage to free Greenlight and RC, and they have to take a number of bots down with them. But they are finally reunited, and they're, for the time being, free. But the problem is they're still trapped on this ship that's going to some unnamed planet that is soon going to become the home to all these crazy people. So they still got some sort of a fight and some sort of a situation to work through on their hands. But for the time being, at least, they've made a bit of progress, and the three of them are free and together. So that's kind of how things end off. And I can't wait to see how they pick it up in episode issue number 9. Next up, more Transformers. It was pretty Transformers heavy month, let's just say that. No G.I. Joe, just a lot of Transformers and that bit of Ninja Turtles. So this one is not a duo. This is actually a triple threat. And if you remember a while back, I did, one of the issues I presented was Transformers 84, and it was issue number 0. So it was basically a prequel done all these years later to the original Marvel storyline of the 1980s comics that started the whole thing off. So I thought that was going to be a one-off. I didn't know they were going with it anymore, but I've got the first 3 issues after that 0 comic, which all happens before, the Ark and stuff like that goes to Earth and that sort of thing. It's all what takes place on Cybertron to kick everything off, sort of thing. So here is issue number 1. Issue number 2, I think. Yeah. And issue number 3. So as this kicks off, these 3 issues are kind of narrated by Punch/Counterpunch, who is like a double agent. He works for both the Autobots and the Decepticons, and I'm not sure if he's actually truly affiliated with one side or not, or just working for his own ends to shape things how he wants. But the events are basically narrated by him and how he influences them. And so it starts off with Megatron and his forces are preparing the Nemesis in order to chase the Ark off of Cybertron when they eventually blast off. And in the meantime, Shockwave is up to something, and nobody's really sure what. Or Punch/Counterpunch, I guess, isn't really sure what. So eventually he manipulates one of Cybertron's planetary turbines to fire violently, which alters the course of the planet, and nobody knows why he's doing this, and nobody can really trace it back to that. However, Punch/Counterpunch knows, and he takes this information to the Autobots, and so they're kind of interested in why he's doing this. So Perceptor leads a team along with the Dinobots to go out and investigate the wreckage and find out exactly what's going on. And then so Skyfire, who's actually a Decepticon at this point, enters the fray, and there's a battle and stuff like that, and eventually Shockwave comes too, and he enters the battle. And in the meantime, Megatron is gathered with his forces to for the official launch of the Nemesis, their ship, and he's like, why isn't Shockwave here, god damn it? So then he sends Thrust, Dirge, and Ramjet to go get him and go like, to F Shockwave, what are you up to out here after that battle has all concluded? And he's like, okay, I'll go with you. So then he goes, and he hadn't planned on it, and he's got secret machinations to end Megatron's reign and all those Decepticons that are going on the Nemesis. He wants them all out of the way, sort of thing. So, but he is eventually forced to go on the trip with them, and but manipulates events so that he stays on the Nemesis while Megatron and the other forces go down after the Ark to finish the Autobots and everything, and he stays aboard the Nemesis, and in that fracas, he believes everybody is destroyed. So Thrust, Ramjet, and Dirge, though, they were not with that group, and they show up and are like, Shockwave, what are you doing? So then he disables them before taking off from the Nemesis and heading back to Cybertron or wherever he was off to. So then it moves on, and it's like Punch manipulates with all those robots off of Cybertron. Punch is back on Cybertron, and he's like, he goes to this evil Decepticon named Straxus, and he says, you know what? You could be the head honcho here now. You could lead things. Megatron and Shockwave are both gone. You know? Megatron's dead. That sort of thing. So then Straxus is like, ah! And he unites what's left of the Decepticons along with a leadership group that includes Scorponok and somebody else, I forget who. And so then they start taking the war to the Autobots on Cybertron. And eventually lots of big players enter the fray. Ultra Magnus is kind of leading the Autobots against this attack, and also joining the Autobot cause is Fortress Maximus, Starsaber, but the Decepticons have also picked up a number of heavy hitters as well. So there's this big war going on Cybertron. Meanwhile, down on Earth, the Dinobots are kind of reanimated, and there's still some Autobots left after all the crash and the wreckage and stuff. Smokescreen, Hoist, Grapple, and maybe one more. So they're the ones left to take on the charge of the Decepticons that remain, which I think include Thrust, Ramjet, and Dirge kind of lead the charge in that regard after they recover from Shockwave's attack aboard the Nemesis. So that's kind of how things leave off there, with a big spot of wreckage on Earth with the Ark and the Decepticons that attack the Ark kind of erupting in this explosive disaster, and then also a whole bunch of chaos going on Cybertron with Straxus and his charges facing off against Ultra Magnus and all of his Autobot charges in this kind of renewed war that features so many new players and different players from the ones that have departed to go to Earth, sort of thing. So be interested to see where this continues to go and how many issues it's going to be, because I'm not sure I don't remember where issue number 1 of that original Marvel series kind of kicked off. And not that this has to lead right up to it. It could go beyond it. It could just do different events that were going on at the same time. I just don't know what their overall plan for this Transformers 84 series is. But either way, it's neat to see kind of some behind-the-scenes stuff that led up to stuff. And it's neat to see all these years later, when the artwork has evolved so much, for them to go back and do it in the old style of Marvel Transformers, which is kind of really neat and stuff. So, and also some interesting characters join the fray, like Fortress Maximus. I've always loved him, the giant friggin' city bot that he is. Deathsaurus, who was just introduced to me in one of the newer series issues from maybe my last post. He shows up in this 84 series, and Straxus, Scorponok joins the fray. Like, there's a whole bunch of Starsaber. Like, he's kind of a unique one that you don't see him too often. So kind of really neat to see what they're doing with this and all the different directions they're kind of pulling it in. So like I said, I'll be interested to see where issue number 4 takes the next bit of action.